Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this special 30th episode of Lead with a Vision, the weekly leadership series hosted by the members and officers of the New Jersey Visionary Cyber Leo Club in District 16J, New Jersey, USA. I won't elaborate too much on our introduction here because we have two very special guests who are going to talk to us about intergenerational Lionism, how we can get all the generations involved within our association so that we can have the best impact possible on our communities. You may be asking yourself, why do we need to have this intergenerational collaboration within our association? And the answer is simple, because we need to look like the communities that we serve. If we're not reflective of the communities that we're in, we cannot venture to serve them in the best possible manner. The insights and backgrounds of our members are invaluable in dispensing service to our communities because they know truly the needs and wants of our target market in our communities, the people that we are trying to serve. I'll just do a quick introduction. I think these people need no introduction because they're so visible. They're so all over the world. Today, we're joined by PID Manoj Shah and his daughter, Soyum Shah, who is a lion in her own right, who are from Kenya, and we're very key leaders in our association, leading the charge in CA8 Africa and also worldwide. We're very honored to have them. I think that if I could go on for a very long time about all their accomplishments, all the places they've been, but I think one thing we'll note is that we're honored to be joined by Soyum for our first ever virtual Lions Day at the United Nations, and she was an excellent presenter at that. So without further ado, I think we'll go straight into the presentation. You'll note that we have a very different setup today, a very different order. I'm going to be addressing a few questions to Manoj and Soyum just as a guide for us to begin talking about what is intergenerational Lionism and how we can get these different generations involved within our association. So I think the first question I'll address, and I'll address it to both of you, however you want to get this started. It's first, how did you join as a Lion? How did you first get involved within our association? Whichever one of you wants to go first, feel free to do so. PID Manoj, I believe you're muted.
Yep. Thank you very much, Ojas, for inviting Soyum and I to this wonderful show of yours. And this topic is a very important topic, intergenerational collaboration. Talking about how did I join the association, I must admit that I joined the association 35 years ago in 1986. In fact, a lot of you will be surprised because I became a Lion by accident. I never ever knew that I was going to become a Lion member. It was one fine evening when my best friend invited me to the charter ceremony of a new club that was being chartered as a guest. I went with him to that charter night ceremony, not knowing anything about what Lionism is all about. And whilst I was there that evening, I met a couple of friends who were becoming charter members of this club. And all of a sudden, I got invited on the spot that, Manoj, would you like to be a charter member of this new club we are chartering? And before I realized what was happening, I was invited that night to join the new club. I accepted, and that very night, I was inducted as a Lion member. And that's how I became a Lion. To you, Soyam.
I echo my Dr. Manoj's compliments. Thank you for inviting us to this show. Well, my story is a bit different to his. I am born into Lionism. Since a young age, since I was born, my sister and I were always taken with our parents for service activities. So we grew up learning about Lionism. At a tender age of 6 is when I went for my first international convention to Montreal in 1996. And in 2000, my dad became a district governor. So my journey pretty much just went into Lionism from a young age. And then on, I just started my Leo club and then grew up and became a Lion. So I was just born into it.
And I think very much so, I think me and Soyum can agree on this, that those of us who are born into Lionism, there really isn't a choice to join Lions. It's on, as soon as possible, the membership application will be in your hand and you will be inducted as a Lion. So I think I'll transition this before we go into this collaboration. I just want to know, when did you have your Lions moment? And for those of you who don't know, this is something that we talk about in International. It's when you realized why our service is so important. And I think I'll give a brief example of myself. I think this happened even before I was a Leo, even before I was a Lion. My parents have been very heavily involved within our association for a few years. I think this is around the early 2010s. There was an apartment fire in a very nearby community to our own. And basically, these people had lost everything. And there was such a big drive from our club to provide them with all the services they needed. Several of them were immigrants to our country, so they had lost their paperwork and they needed to get that paperwork back. They needed to find their stuff so they could go back to work the next day. But what we noticed was that a lot of people were not focusing on the children of these people who had lost everything. So we have an informal club within our Lions Club of all the children of all the Lions. And what we decided to do is get together, collect some toys, collect some gifts for these children so that they could have an easier time going through this recovery process. And I remember I donated my first bike, and it was a kind of a hard thing for me. And I didn't really think too much about it. I had outgrown that bike long ago. But when I gave this bike to this new child, this child who had nothing before and just had this one simple thing, this bike, and I could see the smile on his face, that changed a lot for me. And I could see that the reason why we serve is not to log hours. It's not to contribute to our statistics, not just because we have this association, because that's our purpose. It's because we want people around us to feel good, to have that smile on their face. I apologize for taking up too much time, but I think over to you, Manoj and Soyum. What was your Lions moment?
Well, for me, since a very young age, since I started going for service activities, then every year my birthday would come, and my parents would ask me, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" So before they planned a party for me, they would just take me to a home, and I would give them juice, butter, cookies, bread, and I would cut a cake with them. And then I would just see that why am I sharing? Initially, I was like, why am I sharing my birthday with them when I could be sharing it with my school peers and with, having a party in a bouncing castle? Then over the years, I just started feeling heartwarming of celebrating my birthday because a little bit of bread and cookies and cake that you give them goes far much more than using money to go and have a birthday party. And since that age, every time I knew that I wanted to buy something, I always had to think twice. Also, my parents were very strict with me and my sister that every time we would only get something new if we got good grades. So we were never given anything. We had to work for it. So over time, when they showed us the value of how to spend money and teaching people around us the gratitude of accepting the things that we take for granted is what gave me my Lions movement. And furthermore, I live in a third world country in Kenya, and you see so much poverty. But since a young age, as we started doing things with our own physical hands, it makes such a big difference than seeing it. And that's when my Lion movement and my Lion journey, and that's why I'm here today.
Very interesting to hear both your stories. I mean, they are awesome. But I just want to share with all the audience my first Lions moment. And my first Lions moment was just a few days after I became a Lion member when our Lions Club visited a motherless children's home. And at this motherless children's home, for the very first time, I saw these very young babies, about 3 or 4 months old, coming into this world without a mother and only relying on a caretaker. And when I saw this and I heard the plight of these babies, it brought tears to my eyes. And at the same time, a lot of joy and satisfaction to see that the Lions and my Lions Club and I personally was there to help and support these motherless children. This is the first time I realized what true service meant as a lion. And this was my first lion's moment. I will never forget this moment for the rest of my life. Back to you, Ojas.
I think that's wonderful to hear. And that's one thing that you'll hear from every line in Leo, that despite all the things that we do outside of service, we have our conventions, our Lions Days of the United Nations, all our fellowship. What comes to the forefront from everyone's experience is the service. And that's why our motto is very simply, we serve. So I think I'd like to refocus us and just ask, what advice would you give to a Leo club and their sponsoring Lions that wish to engage in intergenerational collaboration?
Maybe I can start off first and then Soyam can follow. Having been involved in chartering many Leo clubs and also see a lot of Leo clubs failing, and also seeing on first hand what are the problems between the sponsoring lions and the sponsoring clubs with these Leo clubs, I would like to start off by giving my advice first and foremost to the parent club. You can either make or break a Leo club. It's the way you see and nurse this Leo club to have a strong and a sustainable foundation. And the parent club needs to understand and to give a patient hearing to the needs and wants of this Leo club, and also understand what the needs are and really what is it that these young people want to accomplish or achieve in their tenure of being Leos. Not all Leos maybe are on the same page, and it's very, very important for the parent club to understand them. And at the same time, especially to the sponsoring lions who are involved in looking after and nurturing this Leo club, my advice to them is always allow these Leos to the freedom to operate in the way they feel most comfortable. To me, that is very, very important and of paramount importance. And at the same time, my advice to the Leos who are being supported and nurtured by the parent club, I would really like to advise them to communicate freely with the sponsoring lions and the sponsoring club, and also be transparent and open in all their endeavors. If this can be accomplished as the first step, this is the first step towards a successful intergenerational collaboration between the sponsoring Lions Club and the Leo Club. So these are my thoughts on that. Over to you, Soyam.
Well, thank you. So when I was a Leo, and when you're a Leo, oh Jazz, our times have changed, and even our criterias have changed. When I was in school, we had to go and do community service as part of our syllabus. And that's a good time when we incorporated Leo clubs into it to teach everyone and people around us and our students, what community service is and what to do. And at that point in time, we had a strong voice of what we thought was right. My advice was, at that point in time when we had our sponsoring club, they would probably think that they know what is right for us when it wasn't really right, and it wouldn't give us that excitement to continue to doing what we wanted to do. So it's important to realize times have changed, evolution has changed, and even technology has changed. And there's a lot that Leos want to do. And the most important thing is to listen to them. If you listen to what they want to do, they may be wrong and they may not know how to do it. But a parent club's duty is to help guide them, give them confidence, hold their hands, and teach them in the right way, the right path. They may be wrong. They're going to make mistakes. Let them make mistakes, but at the same time, even the parent club will learn something new about innovation and technology, and they're going to learn about new ways to do things. So there's always going to be a mutual benefit from both of our ends. The most important thing is to learn and give them confidence.
And I think that's so important. And one thing that I'd like to emphasize, something that we like to say in the international level, is that we're not a sponsoring Lions Club, that we're a partnering Lions Club. It is truly a partnership between that Leo Club and that Lions Club. That's what empowers our service. And I think I'll take us over to another topic, which may be connected, which is how has Lionism benefited you in your professional life?
Okay, you want to go first, Soyam? Right. Thank you very much, Ojas. Lionism has tremendously benefited me as I have my lovely daughter and my wife fully involved in Lionism right from a very young age. Talking about my professional life, I have never looked back or regretted being a Lion member. The benefits of networking, meeting, and working with Lions such as you, Mahesh, and Anu, and others around the world has been a phenomenal experience that I will always treasure. I could never imagine the leadership and communication skills that Lionism has helped me develop over the years, which has not only enhanced my professional career tenfold, but given me an opportunity to climb the ladder of Lionism to the highest level, giving international leadership as an international director and as an LCIF trustee. Because of my networking and building of my varied skills, I have also excelled in my professional career and enhanced many of my businesses tenfold over the last 30 years. This journey has truly been memorable, and I can ever be so grateful to what Lionism has done for me and my family. To you, Soyam.
Well, for me, growing up in Lionism, being privileged to travel to over 25 international conventions, Isame forums, and even being able to learn how to host our visitors, to plan leaderships. I've been privileged to plan for local conventions, multiple conventions, Isame forums, training institutes. I have learned a lot of skills and been given a lot of opportunities along the way. This in my career life right now has helped me be planned, organized, more efficient, and helped me to learn how to get the best results and the best outcome and to work with people in the best way. Just like you, Jazz, I'm very thankful to my father to be giving me always opportunities to grow and seize every opportunity. I can only tell you that in the past 10 years since I started my professional career, Lionism and all the traits I've learned from Lionism has helped me grow and develop myself tenfold from where I started to where I am now. And I can say that I feel that even in my day-to-day life, you can evidently see there's a positive change.
Well, thank you both so much. And one thing I'd like to touch on very briefly before we move on is that I will be studying business in university in the fall. And one of my business teachers told me a quote, which I think very much resonates with me, which is that we cannot do business with people if we don't understand people. And that's one thing about our association, which I find so key, that we have that global understanding, that we work with people from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different languages. And that's what's unique about our association, that we continue working with these different people. And that's how we gain an understanding of how to work with people of different backgrounds. So I think that I'll turn it over back to our intergenerational communication, which is a question to both of you, which is how can we overcome the intergenerational language barrier, which is the difference in communication and work styles between the different groups, both within our association and outside?
Just to start the ball rolling, to manage intergenerational communication is not easy, to be honest, between different groups, as the thinking, ideologies, and the ways of thinking and working are different. However, Some of the ways to overcome this, which I would like to share with the rest of the audience briefly, is the reason why we are having this language barrier. And the reason is, like Ojas mentioned, is the difference between the intergenerational communication and work styles. It is not the same. Both of them are not on the same wavelength. And in order to overcome this language barrier, the first thing that I would like to recommend is to try and mentor or try and see how can we get both sides to have an open mind when communicating. And usually problems happen when there is a fixed mind or a fixed way of working or doing things with either one of them. At the same time, one of the things that has worked very well in my experience uh, to kind of mitigate the intergenerational language barrier is to have and set ground rules right from the start. And the ground rules are based on the very simple principle of nothing is right and wrong. Please express your views in a positive manner, which will lead to a great outcome. If we can get both sides to buy into this simple ground rule, it will really add and solve a lot of issues or problems. At the same time, I would also like to recommend that give new ideas and views a chance. And if given a chance, you will often find that it works in a very positive manner. At the same time, one of the biggest problems in intergenerational language barriers is listening. Always learn to be a good listener and take or give criticism positively. And finally, I am a firm believer that if you don't change, change will change you. Manage change constructively, and you will succeed in breaking the language barrier. Over to you, Soyam.
Thank you. I would like to share my perspective. In this context, I would like to use the example of my father and myself. My father has had a wealth of experience and knowledge. I, on the other hand, have been trying to build my experience and knowledge. My father worked very hard to be where he is today, whereas I'm very fortunate to have got the best education and the best career path in my growth. And the first trait to overcome intergenerational language barriers is what my dad just said, is to listen to one another without having a pre-decisive outcome of what you may think is right. Once you hear each other, then you discuss the points to get the best outcome. Both parties may not always be right, but it is extremely important to understand one another. The elder generation only wants what's best for us. Hence, when they are giving us feedback, we should take it positively, as it's only in the best interest of us. Us youth also need to realize that we can have all the knowledge and the best education, but it's not without the practical experience. Hence, we have to seize every opportunity we get and work extra hard to achieve what we want to achieve. And lastly, you cannot change someone, but you can change yourself to understand that person better, to adapt and adopt in the best constructive way. This will help bridge language barriers.
And that's great to hear. And I'd just like to piggyback a little bit on what PID Manoj said. And one part of our code of ethics to which every lion subscribes when they're inducted is that we promise to be liberal with our praise and careful with our criticism. And that's incredibly important when working between these two different groups. I see that we're getting a little bit low on time, so I'm going to go straight to our final question, which is, can you tell us a little bit about your experience working with people of different cultures and backgrounds? And then a second part of that question, how can we help youth within our association to gain that global perspective?
Do you want to go first, Soyam?
It's okay, carry on.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ojas. Over the last 20 years of my Lionistic career, I've had tremendous experience working with people with different cultures and backgrounds. And having worked with people with diverse cultures and backgrounds, I've also had a lot of experience. And I would like to start off by talking about my negative experiences. And one of the negatives that I have seen whilst working with different backgrounds is that the beliefs and understanding of people with different backgrounds, and to bring them on the same page in many aspects of service or leadership, takes a different set skill. Not everybody is on the same skill set. However, on a positive note, there are many advantages of working with people with different backgrounds, bringing new experiences on the table, sharing of best practices, and execution of different talents. And coming from the continent of Africa, a lot of people may not be aware, but Africa is a very diverse continent. And being a leader for the continent of Africa is not easy. When we talk about the north part of Africa, it is predominantly Franco speaking and more leaned towards the European culture, where the understanding is totally different from the east, west, or the southern part of Africa. And when we talk about South Africa, which has come out of apartheid just recently, not more than 40 years ago, it's a totally different ball game. Talking about East and West Africa, again, we see a lot of cultural barriers, different ethnic groups, religions, languages, and the way things are done in traditional or other ways. And having had all these experiences, diverse experiences of being a leader in Africa, I can only say with a lot of conviction that if the right tools and the right methods are utilized, we can certainly bring everybody on the same page. Just lastly, I want to share with you, it is not long. It's only 8 years since Africa has been a united Africa. And it was very difficult to bring everybody on one single platform, the Lions of Africa. And it took a lot of initiative, it took a lot of mentoring, coaching, understanding, bringing all the diverse cultures, traditions together, and to bring them all together as united Africans staying in Africa. So these are just some of my experiences that I would like to share with you and the audiences this morning, this afternoon. Thank you, Ojas. To you, Soyam.
Thank you. Well, my perspective is slightly different to his since I'm not that experienced. But the best skills I've learned is how to adapt to different people, is to conversate with them in the most appropriate manner and adapt to their ways of lives. Just to share my personal example of the specialty club we formed a few years ago, which is which has doctors, young professionals, and even students from various ethnic backgrounds and is extremely diverse. It has been a challenge getting them initially to understand the focus of our specialty club, which is on diabetes. But through persuasion and perseverance, we managed to get all on the same page because of the signature cause and the signature fight we had for diabetes. And lastly, just to share that how can we help you to gain a global perspective? For me, and one of my biggest passions is giving the youth a voice to share their thoughts, interacting with other peers to understand from different perspectives, giving them joint opportunities to learn more and do more. And the most important is to give them the necessary information about any program or initiative which will help them to gain a global perspective. Together, we all have to learn from one another. Diversity and youth is only going to help us bring our association for a better and brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. And I'd just like to say I completely agree with everything that Lion Soyum said, but I'd like to counter one point that she said, that she's not experienced enough. I think that we all can see that Lion Soyum, you have invaluable experience that I think will be beneficial as a youth leader within our association. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of this discussion. I think that it was a very great discussion on intergenerational collaboration. Thank you so much, PID Manoj and Lion Soyum, for this conversation that we've had today. And once again, thank you to our audience who continue to join us week after week. We're on week 30 of this series, and we're looking forward to going strong to the end of the fiscal year. So if I can right now, I'm going to spotlight our episode for next week. Until now, we've had so many great Lions leaders, past international directors, vice presidents of our association, Lions and Leos from all over the world. But next week will be a very exciting episode as we have our first staff member join us. Our current Chief Operating Officer, Lion Sanjeev Ahuja, who's just been announced will be taking over as our Lions Club's International Chief Executive Officer beginning on July 1st, the beginning of our 2022 fiscal year. Please join us to hear on LCI4, which is our 5-year plan for growth within our association, as well as his vision to lead Lions Clubs into our next era of service. So I think that does bring us to the end of the episode. Apologies for going a little bit over time, but I think our audience will be appreciative of the great conversation we've had today. Thank you all so much, and please continue to lead with the vision as we go strong within our series. Thank you all so much, and take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.